Today's show is brought to you by ThriveFantasy.com. It's DFS for prop bets. Visit ThriveFantasy.com or get the app for iOS or Android. Use our promo code Armchair and get an instant match up to $50. Choose your 10 favorite props to build your lineup and compete against the rest of the field for cash prizes. Again, that is ThriveFantasy.com or get the app for iOS or Android. Use promo code Armchair to get your instant match. We got a great show today, guys. We have a returning guest coming on. This is his third year in a row coming on fresh off of his Senior Bowl trip. We're going to talk some Dynasty rookies. A lot of information is going to be downloaded, so get your notebooks out, guys. Stay tuned.
Fantasy football, you dealing with the best. Keep it hype, authentic, just ain't nothing like the rest. With the Armchair Fantasy Show podcast, give advice for all the listeners to improve your stats. Yeah, we live on goingfor2.com. Tuesdays and Fridays, this is what you want. Talking dynasties and daily drafts, and we just getting started, that ain't even the half. Yeah, so go ahead, tell your friends to join. Going for two, cause no one remembers the extra point. Hey, goingfor2.com, the Armchair Fantasy Show.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 192 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Jeff Lambert. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. We are live, of course, every Wednesday night, despite what the intro says. We are working on getting a brand new one. I've already got my man Gabe on that task, so we'll have a new intro here pretty soon. But, of course, we're live on Facebook Live, Periscope, YouTube, and Twitch. Syndicated in all your major podcast networks and streaming in the Going For Two app for iOS and Android. I'm here as always with my co-host, who no longer has his Steelers backdrop anymore. He's able to get rid of that on the last show. Ryan, what's up, man?
Yeah, that was vile. It felt gross, but it was nice seeing them lose to Cleveland. So it made it a little bit less painful. But no, good. It's good, man. Got the Super Bowl this week. Last week of real football for a long time, but it's draft season, so that kind of eases all the pain.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because I've been playing fantasy for 22 years, and it used to be the worst time of the year. This time of year, I always hated the off season, but now that I play Dynasty, it's probably the best time of the year, honestly. I mean, I love playing fantasy football during the season. It's great and it's competitive, but the off season is so much funner. There's so much more things you can do content wise. It's awesome.
I've had 2 dispersal drafts already.
Nice. All right. Also, I mentioned at the top our returning guest. This is his third year in a row coming on in this same exact week the last couple of years. Mr. Andy Singelton from the expandtheboxscore.com website. You can follow him on Twitter at PeoplezPen. That's Peoples with a Z. What's up, Andy?
What's going on, guys? I am super excited to be here. I got to say, while listening to that intro, you guys were well ahead of the curve. You guys were like the GameStop of fantasy football. You guys named this Going For Two before they changed the extra point rules. So when Going For Two wasn't as popular as it currently is. So way to go with for that foresight with you guys. But happy to be here, especially on Rosa Parks Day. I was telling Jeff at the beginning off camera that I must have pissed a lot of people off in 2020 because I haven't been getting too many guest requests lately. So I'm happy to be back. But I got to tell you real quick, little disclaimer. I actually had to cancel my trip to Mobile a week before the Senior Bowl. So my 6-year streak was broken, but I was still very much with my ear to the ground. The XTB staff was a dozen deep. Still had, a lot of connections and friends texting me and messaging me behind the scenes. So still, was able to. It was definitely not the same, but was still able to get some good insight from it.
Good stuff. And you just mentioned the XTB, the staff. So go ahead and plug the website. And I know you got a lot of things going on over there. You've come quite a long way since the first time we had you on for Expand the Box Score. You've done a lot of good things over there.
Yeah, it's been really exciting. It's been a whirlwind of a year. I've definitely taken much more of a back step to behind the scenes stuff and just maintaining the site and doing the graphics for all of the different articles. We've built out and expanded on the content team. Right before the season started, there was I don't even really know what the incident was, but basically this whole team of aspiring upcoming scouts. They are all college graduates. They're all fresh-faced, early 20s. This is what they want to do. Scouting Academy. They've worked for various sites such as PFF and Sports Info Solutions and all that kind of stuff. So this is really like what they're career is dedicated to being. They were fully, organized already with over a dozen of them. They had their whole plan in place, and they had something else on the horizon that fell through. About a week before the season, we connected, and we went with it, and I couldn't be more happy. These guys have been working on scouting reports all year. They cover every single position. We're 10 days away from launching expandtheboxscore.com's first ever draft guide for the NFL draft.
Nice.
It's every draft eligible prospect. I'm talking centers, wide receivers, tight ends, everything. Full scouting reports with trait grades, their rankings, full scale reports, summaries, and one of the guys that's working on it, his mentor from the Scouting Academy is Mike Tannenbaum. So Mike Tannenbaum and the 33rd team are actually part sponsors of the guide, and Mike Tannenbaum's writing the forward for this. We have Ron Selesky, who's a former NFL player, XFL general manager.
Nice.
Is it XFL? I'm sorry. XFL. Sorry, XFL. But he's been around. So he's been working as a mentor for some of these guys as well. Just the things to be looking for. So this is a full scale, insane draft guide that you're not going to want to miss. I've been working on doing the graphics for that, so it's plenty colorful and digestible. It's only going to be $12. If you want to bundle it for $20, you get a year subscription to expand the box score to our advanced statistics. So I'm really excited, and like I said, just grinding, a lot going on behind the scenes. So that was a mouthful. I'll turn it back over to you.
No, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. We'll definitely have to get you back on when that guide is released, and give you a chance to plug it once again, because $12 for that much information is a steal right there. And I think most of our listeners would definitely want to buy that. So yeah, good stuff there, man. Good stuff. All right, we got a jam-packed show tonight. Let's just get right into the news and notes.
News and notes from around the league.
News and notes is always brought to you by the Original Craft Beer Club. Get 12 beers a month delivered straight to your door. Sign up at goingfor2.com/getbeer. Get free shipping and 3 free gifts. Again, that's goingfor2.com/getbeer and claim your free gifts. All right, so we haven't talked about this yet. I know it's a few days old, but we haven't talked about it on the show yet, so I wanted to get to it and Ryan, we'll go to you first on this one. This Matthew Stafford trade. What are your thoughts fantasy-wise on this trade and what it does for some of those pieces there on those two teams?
Fantasy-wise, it's huge, especially for Rams players. I think Cooper Kupp's Cooper Kupp regardless. I think it's a boost for Robert Woods. Stafford throws down the field a little bit better. Woods has done a good job of stretching when need be. I think he is a big proponent of it, and I love it for Cam Akers, because Cam Akers has been a good receiving back in our college. He showed he could do that this year. And Matt Stafford, year in, year out, has running backs getting 50-plus receptions every year. And he's done it with bad running backs, good running backs, and now he has a really talented guy. And I think it's huge for PPR value for Akers.
Nice.
On the flip side of Detroit, I like it for Swift because they're going to have to rely on him because we have no idea if the quarterback situation is there. They have pick 7, so they could go quarterback. Pick 7, they could go quarterback there. Could be Goff. I have no idea. And we also don't know if Galladay is going to be there or Marvin Jones. So that whole offense is a question mark for me for every single thing but the running back position. TJ Hawkinson, who I think is going to be good regardless, but there's a lot of questions on that other side of the ball.
So you don't think Goff is just locked in as their starter? You think there's a chance they draft a quarterback?
Depends who's there. I mean, Goff's a fantastic backup plan. They could take a quarterback, maybe one he could sit a little bit too. But I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibilities because you've got all these first-round picks now. You lose your franchise quarterback. You could lose your star receiver.
Yeah.
The team's really close to going to a full rebuild.
Yeah. It seems like the Lions are always in full rebuild. What are your thoughts, Andy, on the situation?
Goff's going to get you mediocre. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
You're good. I think they're already in a full rebuild. I think the Dan Campbell signing was the sign of that. I think the biggest dagger to this franchise's heart was, there was government officials that wrote a note to Lions president and management saying, we want you to hire Robert Saleh as the next head coach. We like his character. We think he'd be great for the city. This is who we want. And I don't even know if he was offered. I know, he came to New York and they basically didn't let him leave. So maybe he didn't even have an opportunity to get that position. But, I mean, that was where he was rumored to be going. And then this whole turnaround, all of a sudden Stafford's available, he's gone. I think this was kind of an overpay. I know a lot of people have pointed to the contract of Goff. I really don't think Goff's contract is all that horrible. I know this year was a little down for him, but there was a lot of flux at the running back position over the last 2 years. They tried to replace Gurley with Henderson, who started to show some signs of life this year. They tried to replace Henderson with Cam Akers, who was kind of sporadic throughout the year. I mean, let's not look at the playoffs and think that's what he was all season. It wasn't, a smooth sailing out of the gate. So I think Goff had, a little bit, I don't know, not the most fairest of grades. This has to be a Super Bowl. It has to be. You get to the conference championship. You've been to a Super Bowl, Goff. Like anything less, you're basically saying Stafford is 2 games better than Goff. Yeah. So you've really set yourself up for all or nothing. I think the biggest thing is we all consensusly kind of agree that Sean McVay is, an offensive guru. The fact that he wants Stafford excites me. Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's a good call.
I saw they have 6 players on that roster, 107 mil a year. Cool. So they're just top loaded.
Yeah, they definitely are. Yeah, I think the McVay Goff sort of marriage, kind of went sour. Maybe it was a little bit from last year and then carried over into this year. And I think that was what they wanted, to just get rid of Goff, get Stafford in here, and hopefully, like you said, hopefully he's 2 games better. Get him in the Super Bowl next year.
One more thing. Let me just add to that real quick. It's interesting that the defense carried them so much this year, and it kind of mirrors what Jacksonville was with Jalen Ramsey when they got that far. And the defense was lights out, and then the next year they all fell apart. And it wasn't because they were all leaving or whatever. So who's to say that the Rams are as good next year all around as a team? So you make this huge move to get Stafford, and they might not even make the playoffs next year.
Yep, that's a good point. And they're playing in one of the toughest divisions. On top of that, we had some struggles this year, the 49ers, but we're coming off a Super Bowl year. The Cardinals are up and coming. The Seahawks are always going to be there. So it's a tough division to try to win in, just in general. All right, let's stick with the quarterbacks here. And Sean Payton, head coach for the Saints, came out and said that he hopes to re-sign Jameis Winston. Ryan, if he re-signs Jameis Winston, assuming that Drew Brees retires, who is the Week 1 starter for the Saints? Is it Winston?
Honestly, I have no idea. If I have him on my team in Superflex, I'm trading which one of this either quarterback from that team that I have. You'd want to think it's Winston because it makes the most sense because he's a true quarterback. But I like 60-40 my confidence on it. I don't feel great either way.
What are your thoughts on Winston, Andy?
I'm surprised that he didn't get much run at all. Actually, 0.
That's why I'm afraid.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if he's back in New Orleans, I think it's only with the guarantee that he's the starter. Mm-hmm. So if he's back there, I'm comfortable with it. And with the receivers they have and the offense they have, I don't see why he couldn't be fantasy relevant like he was the last time we saw him in Tampa Bay. I mean, interceptions depends on your league, of course, but interceptions don't really hurt you in fantasy. In real life, they hurt your team. So I'm not really concerned from a fantasy aspect. If he's a starter, I want him.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think those pieces around there too, get a little bit of the stock up because Drew Brees wasn't the deep ball thrower that he once was, and I think we've seen Winston's unafraid to throw the ball down the field to anybody, even if they're triple covered, so it doesn't matter. So I think stock up on Michael Thomas, Sanders if he's still going to be there, stock up. Traquan Smith even a stock up for there as well. All right, let's sticking with the quarterbacks here. Just the whole theme of quarterbacks. ESPN's, I think it was Adam Schefter, came out and said that Sam Darnold, could be worth a late round first if he's traded. Ryan, let me ask you, if you've got Darnold in your dynasty leagues, are you hoping he gets traded? Are you hoping he stays with the Jets? Or what are you hoping for if you're a Sam Darnold owner?
Oh, I absolutely want him traded. I think he has talent. I just don't think it's going to be for the Jets. They had second overall picks. I can't see them not taking a quarterback there. He has a big arm. He flashed it in college, and you've seen games where he's played well. It just hasn't been consistent, but we've also seen Ryan Tannehill go from an Adam Gase offense, and no one thought he was going to start again in the NFL, to a Pro Bowler this year. So we got a young quarterback who just needs out in a different system and a new start.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think Andy, I'm gonna go to you real quick on this one. Give us your thoughts a little bit on the situation with Darnold.
Well, this is my team, right? So it was such a depressing season to watch. It got to the point where you hated to see them win. I became a Jet fan the last time they went 1-15 with Rich Kotite, and that's what made me get on, because I just figured there's nowhere to go but up from here. And outside of a couple of years with Parcells and 5 minutes with Mangini, there hasn't really been much hope. But I should let me not forget Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan 2 years too. But I really love Sam Darnold coming out of USC. I was a fan. I was happy they were able to get him. I think they gave up a little too much to get him, trading 3 top 50 picks, but it was what it was. He just hasn't been able to be consistent in terms of staying on the field. Also, the personnel around him hasn't been great. I don't know if that's necessarily a sign of him, Gase, the offense, the personnel, but just none of it's kind of clicked. If you can tell me, I'm ready to say we don't need to take a QB or two and take another experiment. If it's not Trevor Lawrence, I don't really think we need to push the envelope there. I'm happier trading back or, grabbing some pieces, even Devonta Smith that high. But point being, if you can get a late round first for him right now, and that gives you two firsts this year, I'll throw the second in. I'll throw the next 3 years first rounds in for Deshaun Watson, if that's what you're telling me. I'll even give the Seahawks first round. If I still have one first round pick and that gets me Watson, let's do it.
Yeah, that's a good call, because I think that's kind of his favorite spot right now. I think Jets, and I heard the Miami Dolphins are kind of in that mix too, if they end up moving on from Tua, which is crazy to me to think that. But yeah, I've heard the Jets are definitely on his list.
I agree. I think it's definitely crazy because I love Tua as well, and he's obviously much younger. The Dolphins, though, it's a scary mix because they have so much to offer. If you think the Jets have a lot to offer, compensation-wise with picks, the Dolphins are step for step with them. Plus, if Tua's in the mix, that has to be more appealing than Sam Darnold at this point.
Yeah, it's a good call. All right, one last thing on these quarterbacks. We'll make this one short. I read it today and I couldn't believe it, but multiple teams could be interested in trading for Derek Carr. Ryan, I'm gonna go to you on the Derek Carr side of things. There's nowhere he can go where he's gonna get any value, right?
My audio just went out, or yours did.
All I hear is a really loud fan or something. Are we good now?
Yeah. I believe the teams like Carr. I mean, he's never been terrible. He's been a competent starter, and he's a really good bridge quarterback for a team who may not have a high pick. Honestly, we kind of talked about the Saints with Winston. Carr fits that situation to me because he's a game manager. He makes the smart plays, and that's what somebody like Sean Payton wants. If you want a veteran quarterback who's just going to play smart, he's your guy.
Yeah, I agree. And I still hear that noise in the background. If it's a fan on or something, I can't figure out what it is.
That's a heater. I'll take it off.
All right, good. Andy, let me go to you on your thoughts on Derek Carr, and then I want to think about if Derek Carr does leave, is it Marcus Mariota there in Las Vegas?
I think Gruden's a big fan of Mariota, and Mariota didn't do anything to disappoint that confidence and belief in him. I like Carr, but I don't think he's been nearly the same ever since his injury a couple of years ago at the end of the season. He's just never. He was lights out that year. He threw one of the best deep balls in the league accuracy wise. You figured he had Amari Cooper. That was going to be a long time thing, and then he just got gun shy. He got way more conservative. He started to look like he may have been getting that back a little bit this year, but I don't know that he's the difference maker that I want to gamble on. I think he's had everything at his disposal in Oakland, LA, Vegas now. So the fact that he hasn't really been able to get it done tells me he's not a bad quarterback. He's just, if you want to get to where the Rams thought they were with Goff, that's all right. Go for Carr. Because to me, that's kind of, I'm not comparing him to Goff. I'm just saying I think that's kind of his ceiling. If you're looking to make a trade for a quarterback, especially of that caliber, or what you're going to have to give up, this is a guy you got to believe can get me all the way to the promised land, and I don't see that with Carr right now.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I almost feel like he's a bridge quarterback at this point now, and I don't think he's going to be asking for bridge quarterback type money. So I think it's going to be hard for the Vegas Raiders to try to move him. But you're right. I mean, Gruden does like Mariota, and he didn't do anything to disappoint this year. He actually looked better than Carr at some point. So yeah, I agree. It's going to be a situation to monitor for sure. All right, let's talk some Senior Bowl, man. So you told me before the show that you weren't able to make it down there, but you got some guys that went down and were able to sort of look at these guys sort of behind the scenes, not just in the game, but in their workouts and their drills. Who were some of the standouts? Obviously we know the ones we saw in the game, like Michael Carter and such. But any other guys that kind of stood out to you that may not have had just a great game, but had more workout?
Yeah, there were a few guys, definitely for sure. I think one of the questions in the rundown was, did anybody help their stock or standouts leading up to the Senior Bowl? I have to tell you, this year with COVID and everything that was going on, being so different, the real winners were the guys that were able to not have to commit until later in the season. You saw all the Alabama guys. That only happens because there's no combine. That only happens because of the way things are set up. So this was just a week of saying, hey, listen, I'll take the extra exposure. I'll take the opportunity to meet with all these NFL teams and franchises, get the ball rolling, sell myself to them. So those were the real winners, regardless of any, downplayed or whether it be in practice or the games. As far as, some standouts, I think probably the guy that drew and generated the biggest buzz overall, I would say, was probably Dwayne Eskridge and Demetric Felton. Two guys, at the wide receiver position, kind of hybrid kind of guys, if you will, because Felton was a 3-year wide receiver and then moved to running back this past year. Looks much more natural as a wide receiver. Looks really like a slot guy. But he wasn't bad as a running back. I just don't know how much I trust the Pac-12 at this point. There've been some lean years out there, so I'm much more comfortable with him as a wide receiver watching him. But Dwayne Eskridge is another guy who was kind of on the fence of being a cornerback or a wide receiver. Went full-time wide receiver this year and really has kind of blossomed and emerged. Really surprised a lot of people at the Senior Bowl. There were some other people like John Lobb, I know, was talking him up for a while before this. Emery Hunt as well. But now everybody's, aware of him. So I think those were two of the bigger winners. And then really the position that really is just kind of like you either know or you don't know. There's no question about it, is quarterback. That's the one position that you could go in there and just say, no, I am the goods, or, yeah, there's some questions. And by the goods, I mean, yeah, I'm a first-round pick, lock it up. And Mac Jones did that. The guys you've seen in the past that did that were, the Carson Wentz's, Justin Herbert last year. I mean, Mac Jones just went in and said, don't debate if I'm a first-round pick or not. I'm a first-round pick. This is me.
Nice.
So to me, those are the three bigger winners on the offensive side of the ball. Defensive, on the lines, I think that's where a lot of guys stand out also because I think it's the hardest week for running backs because really not much they're doing to kind of win one-on-one battles, if you will. The wide receivers and the DBs go at it, and that usually favors the wide receivers. The line, the trench, they're going one-on-one. So those are really where you're going to see the most impact and the most buzz of people talking.
Nice, good stuff. Ryan, is there anything you wanted to ask on the Senior Bowl before we move into to our next topic here? Anything that you wanted to talk about, any certain player or anything?
No, I mean, we have our list here, has almost every relevant player from the Senior Bowl on it. So I'm kind of good with that. But was there any other standouts? Was there any other quarterbacks there who flashed, even second round wise, or who's gonna function?
Yeah, I think I personally think Ellinger is a better quarterback than people want to give him credit for. He was changing his mechanics a little. I mean, he's played in big games. He's played in big conference. This isn't a slouch at the position. I mean, I'm not saying he's a first rounder, but I definitely think he's more in that fourth round range. If somebody needs a quarterback and didn't get one early, they might even, pick him up like in the third or something. I don't think that would be a reach. And I think this is a guy that could come in and surprise people. I mean, I shouldn't say I'd rather have, but I'd be just as comfortable, if you had Ellinger. I mean, let's look at Cincinnati, right? Burrow gets hurt. That's just, not something that you want to see. I mean, all of a sudden, you got Ryan Finley there. I'd be fine with Ellinger in that situation and see what he could be, and I think he would surprise some people. So for the quarterback position, I would say Ellinger kind of solidified himself a little bit for me. Trask, I think, is way better. I shouldn't say way better. I think it's like flipping a coin with Trask. Some days you like him, some days you hate him. I'm gonna go, glass half full with him. Be a little more optimistic than most, but nobody really moved up or moved down. Maybe Jamie Newman moved down a little bit, but I think a lot of people are gonna give him some credit for having a lot of rust for being out for a year. So I think as the quarterbacks go, Mac Jones was the only one who really just put a stamp on things.
What about? And then one other one. I'll say one other thing. Was there any players? Hey, you kind of mentioned like the tweener thing. Was there any players there who performed really well who you just don't trust what you saw there? Like they looked good in one-on-ones because that goes to what they do well. Like because we see that every year where one or two guys just create a buzz and then mislead the world.
Yeah.
And for me, those two guys were both wide receivers, and they're bigger names. One being Tylan Wallace, and one being Frank Darby. I know there's big names, and the production is there for Wallace especially. It's just he doesn't. I don't know. It's hard to say because I'm not trying to sound like I'm knocking any of these guys. They're world class athletes, and any break can go the right way. But there's another Oklahoma. There have been two other Oklahoma State Cowboys in the last couple of years that I can vividly recall. One was Marcel Aitman, who just had a great Senior Bowl week. I thought was going to be something. Had maybe 2, maybe 3 good weeks in the NFL as a pro so far. Hasn't really amounted to much. I thought he could be much more consistent than he's been. James Washington, I loved, and you've seen the highs and lows with him, and it's been more lows than highs. So a guy like Tylan Wallace, it's not to say he's a product of the system, but I watch his film. He doesn't really do anything that jumps out at me as like unique, but just somehow he always seems to be in the right place at the right time, a step ahead of the defender. Not because it looks like he's, oh my God, I have to have this guy, but just, okay, you got it done again. All right. That's a skill. That's a trait. You have to kind of give credit to that, but he doesn't excite me. And Darby's another one. I saw a lot of guys talking him up. Not horrible. It just, I think that was more of winning the one-on-ones than what I think will happen in 11-on-11.
All right, good call. All right, so after the break, we're going to talk about a bunch of rookies, other guys that weren't necessarily in the Senior Bowl. But this one I had to give its own topic to because I saw on your Twitter timeline that your RB1 in this class is actually not one of the top 2 guys that everybody's calling. It's not Najee Harris, it's not Travis Etienne. It's actually Javonte Williams. You gotta talk about it a little bit because I wrote an article on him. I love what I saw, and I want to hear your thoughts on him as well.
Are we doing this now or after the break?
Yeah, we'll do this one now before the break, and then we'll do the break.
Right. So, where do I begin? Some of this is, a little beating the chest, puffing the chest out, a little bit, kind of cringing, like, clenching your toes, hoping this comes to fruition.
Yeah.
The other's actually affirmation and belief in it. I am pleased and joyed every time I see on the timeline somebody new to the hype train and saying, "Oh, Javonte Williams just put his tape on. Wow!" Or, "Oh my God, my new favorite draft crush." Or every day it seems to be somebody new popping up saying that. So to me, that's always a treat to see because I've been saying this for a little while now. I don't think I'm the only one. I don't think I'm the first one. But let's put it into context. Everybody's talking about Michael Carter, right, and how good he's looked. No question about it. Javonte Williams is about 20 to 30 pounds heavier, a couple inches taller, a couple years younger. and does everything that Michael Carter does. What does he do that Najee Harris doesn't do? I think he's just more dynamic. I think he's just more fluid. There are some limitations to Najee's game that I see, not taking anything away from him. And there's clearly a Najee Harris fan club. I've been a Bama homer for 7 years now, somewhere in that range. So, I love Bama backs as much as anybody. I've been talking about Najee for 3 years now, saying he was the best Harris when I was vouching for Damian Harris. So this is nothing against Najee at all. Just to me, you see some of the highlights in him hurdling guys and leapfrogging guys. He'll blow somebody up, a would-be tackler. They look great on the highlights, but they're not consistent enough. And his main move is kind of like a sidestep, and he tries to do it a little too much. I think he tries to bounce to the outside way too much for a guy his size. Whereas Javonte Williams is, to me, it reminds me more than anything of Josh Jacobs a couple of years ago when guys were saying, oh, he's got limited production, this, that, and the third, making all the excuses. And at the end of the day, it was, yeah, but this is the most talented guy, and we're projecting future. So with Javonte Williams, it's a combination of the metrics, it's a combination of the film, it's a combination of the production, it's a combination of what he's done in a system with other players and still being able to put up gaudy numbers, and then just top it all off with saying, I think this projects well at the next level, better than Najee Harris and Travis Etienne.
Nice. Ryan, I know.
Enough? Do you need more?
No, that's good, man. That's good because I said I'm already a big fan. I did my my rookie profile, and actually hit my player comp to him was actually Nick Chubb. He's not quite as elusive as Nick Chubb, but I think he has some of the same traits as Nick Chubb. So that was my player comp. So obviously I like him a lot. Nick Chubb's been awesome in the NFL. He's one of the best running backs in the NFL right now.
I don't dislike that at all. I do think he is as elusive as Chubb. I think he does it in some different ways, and I do think he's a better receiver than Chubb.
Yeah, good call. Ryan, what are your thoughts on I know you like him, but how much do you like him?
I like him. I think he's I'm not as high on him as you are. I like a lot of what he does. I love how he finishes runs. He shows he's a really decisive runner. Every game I watch, except for the Notre Dame game, I think he's going to be... I want to see him in the right situation. I want to see him in a team that wants to pound the ball, play the lead, kind of like a late game grinder, so to say. He has soft hands for his size. I think he has low-end RB1 potential in the NFL for dynasty and fantasy. I like a lot of what Najee Harris does, a little bit more, especially in the receiving game, which I just talk about every time he's brought up. But no, he's a really good player. I have no problem with him over at Etienne. They're right here with me. So I'm on board with it. I'm not going to bust anybody's balls if they're for that running back or not. If you're within the top three, you're all good.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, and I do think there's a clear top tier with those three in it. So however you want to sort them is fine with me. I don't think Etienne can carry as much as Javonte Williams can at the next level.
Yeah.
I don't think he's as scheme diverse as Javonte Williams either. I think Etienne needs to be in a spread out offense with huge running lanes, and he's going to be like 2-yard run, 3-yard run, 2-yard run, 36-yard run.
Yeah.
And it's going to come like that where Williams is going to just plug away.
One thing I forgot to mention also, if you watch his film, and this is, it sounds kind of silly to say, but you'll pick it up if you're looking for it after a while. He just seems to fall forward for an extra 2 or 3 yards every time, even when he's tackled. You can't say that about everybody. Sometimes they get stopped right there or they get knocked back. He just falls forward, and sometimes it's for a yard, sometimes it's for 3 extra.
Yep.
Those add up at the end of the day.
Yep, that's a good call.
Ray Q had one of my favorite comps for him that I've seen. It was Marion Barber.
Yeah, I saw that, and I don't love it because I just don't think the Marion Barber name rings bells. That's the only reason.
I remember him vividly, man. He was a monster his first couple of years.
Oh, he was fantastic, but I don't think people can, unanimously have a glowing memory of Marion Barber. So to me, it sounded more like it didn't sound as positive as I think Ray intended for it to sound.
No, I agree.
I have a certain player compared to Tavon Austin. I don't mean this a bad thing. So
yeah, we did that in one of our War Room shows. I know who that is. I'm not sure that one's been released yet, so we'll save that one for the War Room. All right, we're up on a commercial break, guys. So quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to look at some of the running backs and receivers in this class coming up and find out who Andy likes. So hang tight.
Experience a new way to play daily fantasy sports and esports on Thrive Fantasy. Thrive's game concept revolves around player props, which are simple over-unders on player stats. There are contests for traditional sports including the NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, and cricket, as well as esports titles including CSGO, Dota 2, League of Legends, and more coming soon. Here's how to play. Choose your lineup of over-unders for top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Each prop has a fantasy point total based on how likely it is to hit. The more points the selection is worth, the riskier it is. Rack up the most points and win a share of the prize pool. Thrive is awarded over $2 million in cash, so come and prop up today.
All right, guys, welcome back. I'm here with Ryan and Andy, and we are about to talk about some of this 2020 rookie class, the running backs and the receivers. I have a whole list of names down here. We probably won't get to all of these names, but a few of the hot button ones we'll try to touch on. And the first one I have on here, and one of my writers did a breakdown article, actually a breakdown video on this guy, and honestly, I hadn't heard too much about him until I saw that. I've heard some buzz now on Twitter over this guy, but Javian Hawkins, what are your thoughts on Javian Hawkins? I know he's a little bit smaller guy, more of probably a complimentary back, but what's your thoughts on him?
I've done a complete 180 on him in the last couple days. The first time I watched him, I was just thinking, too small, not going to get it done. Went back and watched again and fell in love. He is small, but he's tough. He's tough as nails. He's aggressive. He's not looking to not get tackled. I mean, obviously, all offensive players are looking to not get tackled, but I mean, he's not shying away. We often refer to like Walter Payton as like never running out of bounds. I mean, it's just that kind of mentality with Hawkins, where it's like, I don't care how big I am. I'm running until you can stop me. He's just twitchy. He's got insane burst and speed. Went to look up his numbers and found out he ran a 4.39 40 in high school, which is just insane. I was initially thinking, I really, really like him. I just fear for the size. So I think he could be a dynamic special teams weapon as a returner. And then it made me start thinking, well, what's so different about him and Tariq Cohen? So why can't he be this Tariq Cohen-like clone where he's a punt return specialist and catching 50+ balls a year out of the backfield?
Yeah, that's a good call, and that's kind of what he talked about a little bit in the video that he did. Ryan, have you had a chance to look at Hawkins at all? What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I actually watched him earlier today for kind of dove into it. I thought Tariq Cohen's a name that actually popped up in my mind. Chris Thompson was another one. I think he's really electric, and I think he could be a part of an offense. I like him in maybe 10 to 12 touches a game, spread out in different ways, whether it be in the receiving role or runs late in games. He has a lot of talent. I think he's going to be more of a real football asset than a fantasy asset. But it's there. He's so fun to watch. Like, he was one of the most fun watches this time of year. But for 3-down back, something like that, no. I want to see him in a running back by committee with a nice as a complimentary piece.
Yeah, and that's go ahead, Andy.
No, you go.
Everybody's a committee now.
I was just gonna reiterate what Ryan said. That's kind of what I heard. That he's a committee back, but in PPR leagues, committee backs aren't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, Kamara was a committee back with Ingram for a long time, and he was awesome. So committee backs aren't necessarily a bad thing. What were you gonna say, Andy?
I was going to say I like the Chris Thompson comp a lot, although I don't really remember him being an impact special team returner. I know he did field some kicks, but not really many punts. That's why I say Cohn. But in talking about body comps, I mean, I think he looks more like Thompson than Cohn. I think Cohn looks a little shorter and a little stockier. Well, he is a little shorter. I mean,
he
Hawkins
runs a lot like him.
I'm really curious to see what the weigh-in is going to be, and that's why this year is going to be so different without a combine, because we don't have a unanimous agreement on what the official weights and heights and times are going to be. I mean, this is going to be all at pro days, which we want to assume everything's going to be on the level, but things could be skewed a little. I mean, he's listed at 5'9", 196, which is basically Chris Thompson. He just doesn't look that thick. He doesn't look like 200 pounds. I mean, This is kind of like what Devin Singletary was coming out. So, but I don't see that same type of body tone or body type. So I'm really curious to see if he is actually over 180. When he actually measures out.
I think that's the over-under bet right there is 180.
180, yep, agreed. All right, so when I did this show sheet, I kind of polled Twitter a little bit, Twitter and Facebook as well, and a name that popped up quite a bit, the guys I wanted to hear about is Kylan Hill from Mississippi State. What are your thoughts on Kylan Hill?
I'm going to let Ryan go first because I haven't dug into Kylan Hill enough yet. He's another one of those guys to me at this point is like, I want to believe more than what my gut is telling me. I'm not there yet on him, but he is an intriguing name. I just feel like the last couple of years, there's been guys like this coming out of Mississippi State, and I hate to give the program a knock, but I'm not 100% sold yet.
All right, Ryan, what are your thoughts?
I think he's a guy who's good at everything, not great at anything. Like, he checks every box. Like, he has decent speed, decent power. He's just not below average at anything. And I think he's a very solid backup. I wrote down Wayne Gallman when I watched him, who, was very serviceable when he had starting role this year, but you don't want him in the starting role.
Right.
If he gets the chance, you're going to play him. His best trait to me was his pass blocking.
Yeah,
which I don't want to see.
Doesn't help you in fantasy.
He was fantastic at it, but I don't want to see that as the best trait and thing I'm most excited about when watching a running back.
Agreed.
He's just solid. That's it. I don't think he'll ever be anything more than an RB2, and that's only if he somehow starts every game, which probably won't see.
All right.
Hey, Wayne Gallman does not exude excitement.
Definitely does not.
I wasn't excited.
All right. Another name that's been popping up quite a bit. I've actually seen him sneaking into some of the first round in some mock drafts that I've already done. Kenneth Gainwell from Memphis. What are your thoughts on Kenneth Gainwell?
He's my clear-cut RB4 in this draft. I like him a lot. He's just got tremendous quickness. He's shifty as anything. He's got balance as far as being a receiver and a runner. I'm a little worried about the year off. I hope he took the time and was able to bulk up a little without losing any of his quickness or speed. But he was one of those guys that you feel like, okay, this guy could be in the conversation as an every down back, but needs to put on a little bit more first. And that's kind of where we're at with him. So he's another guy. I mean, his last recorded, size was 5'11", 190. He looks a little thicker to me than 190. He looks more to be in that 200-pound range. But if he could get up to 215 in that territory at an official weigh-in, and that 5'11 is legit, even if it's 5'10", 210, I would feel much more comfortable. He did get 230 carries as a second-year player in that Memphis system. Which, this is the biggest takeaway. I think we really need to consider is that he made Antonio Gibson play wide receiver.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
So that's how good this guy could be as a runner.
Yeah, that's kind of how I sold him. A friend of mine was talking about him a little bit, and I said, yeah, he made Gibson move to receiver because I think he was just that good of a running back. So I agree. I think Gainwell, as long as he can bulk up a little bit, is my RB4 as well. What about you, Ryan? You got him in that RB4 range as well?
Yeah, I was a big fan of Gainwell. Yeah, he's going to be my 4 or 5. So I like everything about him. He's super explosive. He really did fit that Memphis offense, that running gun they do. I still have him as a not an every down back, like somebody in a role like we've seen an Austin Eckler in, maybe that 200 touch range, used in different ways. But he's so explosive, he doesn't need that much more to be relevant. Yeah, I mean, he's versatile. He's big plays. I saw some drops and fumbles, which I know we can kind of throw fumbles out the window. It's something we don't do there, but there's still a decent bit of them when I watched it.
Yeah.
And I like that he can finish his runs as well, or how he finishes his runs.
All right, good stuff. All right, we're up against the clock a little bit here, so let's do some quick fire in these last couple of guys here. Jamar Jefferson from Oregon State, Andy, real quick.
Yeah, he's exciting to watch. Big breakaway guy. He reminds me of Darrell Henderson, I mentioned before, and also of Ronald Jones, Rojo, going back to their college film, where it's basically just a lot of home run hits. It's kind of feels like it's all or nothing to me with him. He's either hitting the gap and taking it to the house, or he's not really doing much else. So the total numbers look great. He's a hit or miss. Like his runs, he's a hit or miss prospect to me. I'm not sold on the Pac-12, as I mentioned before. Mm-hmm. So you look at what Rojo and Darrell Henderson have done, and again, these are the guys that come to mind when I'm watching him. They were much better names in drafts than what their production's been to this point. So, that's kind of where I feel with Jefferson, where I'm intrigued, but I'm not in love.
All right. And Ryan, we'll do one more. Pick one off that list there that we haven't talked about. We got Hubbard, we got Trey Sermon, and then it's pretty much it. We have Michael Carter. We kind of mentioned him already. Which of those guys you want to talk about?
Kind of bring up too Hubbard, because he's been a guy who's really, really fluctuated in everybody's views from one year to the next. At one point, we saw him in RB1 talks, and now he's been kind of forgotten. And I think the truth's somewhere in between. I think he has a lot of potential. I think he's a very, very landing spot dependent guy. He's one of the best 0 to 60s. He has breakaway speed, but he's shown some inconsistencies. He's not really, really creative running. And he's really limited in the passing game, but he's a huge explosive play runner. He's real good in cutback lanes. If you see him, again, I swear to God, I'm so sorry to hear him saying this, but he's a perfect San Francisco running back. Outside zone, where it's spread out, and they have those big holes for him to run through. So if he has that, he's going to be a monster. But if you're trying to get him to be 25 carries, grinding the ball out, he's going to fail.
All right, good stuff. Is there anybody?
Let me add to the running backs before we move on.
Yeah, go ahead.
We don't have to get too deep, but do not rule out. This is a name I don't hear anybody talking about, but do not discount Stevie Scott out of Indiana.
Oh yeah, good call. Yeah, I was going to say, is there any guys we haven't mentioned yet that you wanted to talk about? So yeah, that's a name I haven't heard.
Anybody talking up Stevie Scott? He's got great size. He's coming out of a great program that Tom Allen's built in Indiana. I don't see why more people aren't talking him up, and I think as we get closer to the draft, that's going to be a name you see a lot more people start mentioning, going, how did we forget about this guy? He was basically best freshman running back Indiana's ever had with this production, and didn't really slow down too much since then. It's been a little sporadic. I mean, this past season was a little crazy, but like I said, Tom Allen's putting together a tremendous program in Indiana and built them into a top 10 program with Penix before he got hurt. So this isn't something to look at and just think like, it's not fool's gold in my opinion. So I really like Stevie Scott.
All right, it's a name to write down for me because I think I said it before. I'm not a big college guy. I don't watch much college, so these names are I'm learning him right now, so I'm taking some notes myself. All right, let's get to the receivers here, and I'm going to skip a couple of the top ones there. I think we've heard enough about, Rondell Moore, Rashad Bateman. I'm going to go to, and I hope I'm saying this name right, but Amon-Ra St. Brown from USC. What are your thoughts on him?
He's the best of the St. Brown trio. He's, actually there's more than a trio, but there's three that we really know. Equanimous is the bigger one that we know so far. But Amon-Ra is, he's got great production, and it's my feeling for him, and I keep saying this, is I compare him to LaMelo Ball of the basketball Ball family, where Lonzo Ball was, known and drafted, and we looked at it like, oh, this is going to be amazing, and it's just kind of there now in the league. Equanimous Brown will be the comp for that. LaMelo Ball is the truth. So Amon-Ra Brown looks to be he's been better in college than his brothers at this point. So I think the hope is there that it's for real. I'm happy to have it. It just proves how deep the wide receivers are yet again in this class, that you can get a guy with this type of production and upside. This is an alpha receiver. This is a number one type. This is a lead receiving type. We saw, the Jets take Denzel Mims last year and wait and finally get Mims as their, potential wide receiver one. This is, St. Brown. I don't think he's going to get much past the second round. I think he's definitely in that top 10 mix at the position. But again, it's unfair to say, but you start feeling like there are some stereotypes that you want to start drawing back to, and whether it be a program or a family or the style of play or whatever it is. But I do like what I see with St. Brown, and I hope it's the truth. That's right. Okay to say.
Yeah, that's good. Ryan, have you had a chance to look at a little bit of St. Brown yet?
Yeah, I like him. One thing you said about him and his brother, where his brother's that big name player, I think it shows with how he plays really chippy, and he's a very physical player, either blocking, trying to run through guys. I really like that about him. He makes a ton of tough catches. He's great playing over the top of the red zone, in the end zone. You see some mental errors out of him, but that's fine. I'm not that worried about it. I think he's going to work really well as that big slot position in the NFL. I'm not fully there as him as an alpha, but I can see him as a 1B receiver. Somebody with a complementary skill set. You get, even if I'd use Baltimore for example, him and Hollywood Brown would be perfect with each other, skill set wise. They complement each other.
Yeah, you think he'd be the alpha in that situation with Hollywood Brown being a smaller guy?
I think he'd be more targeted. I could see him more targets, more catches, and one of those other receivers more yards. Gotcha.
All right, good stuff. All right, so we already talked about Terrace Marshall a little bit, so let's move down to Elijah Moore. What are your thoughts on Elijah Moore, Andy?
Yeah, first look at him wasn't crazy. I mean, he's a guy that, so there's this, every year there's this whole debate, metrics versus film, right? It has to be some combination. I'm into both, obviously, expand the box score. I'm into the numbers, but I'm much more into the film because to me it just, I feel like you're getting a better look at a player than just based on the raw data of the numbers. But I look at the metrics first to see, okay, who jumps out, who's super productive, and his numbers are ridiculous. They're off the charts. I started doing something. It started because of COVID, I guess, because the games were so thrown off. But basically started taking a player's last 2 years and then prorating those averages over a 12-game average. So if you look at Elijah Moore over his last 20 games, his 12-game average would be 92 receptions, 1,200 yards, and 11 touchdowns. I mean, that's just
pretty good.
Insane production.
Yeah.
He's still not even 21 yet. He'll be 21 on March 27th. He played in the SEC. I mean, these are all things that you want to see. But my biggest knock is, I feel I was questioning the size, questioning if he would get bullied too much. I feel like, every time he gets pressed at the line, he's very easily jammed. So that was my initial takeaway. And then Damian Parson, who's a great follow on Twitter. I've been going back and forth with him because he loves him. And so I had to go back and look, and I was like, you know what? All right, I do see how he can have some benefit in an offense. And then I compared his past season with the year before, and that's where I really started getting some trepidation and pause. The Lane Kiffin bump was a 34% increase in his production. His catch rate went from 58% to 87%, and this is in 4 less games. So when you go back and then look again, you could see, a lot of these touches, a lot of his production was manufactured. Now that speaks to his athleticism, his ability with the ball in his hands, and the team trying to get him the ball. But, to me, Lane Kiffin is one of the top 5 offensive minds in football, college or pro. So that bump is significant, and a 34% increase from the year before to the Lane Kiffin year. I'm betting more on Kiffin than on Moore.
Yeah, that's a good call, and good name drop there. Damian Parsons is a friend of the podcast. I think his Twitter handle is at @DP_NFL. He's a great follow. Actually, I think I'm gonna get him on the show. I think sometime in March. So great name drop there. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Elijah Moore?
I agree with basically everything about him. Like, that was the first thing I noticed as you mentioned the manufactured touches. He's great when he has the ball in space, but you can't make a living in the NFL like that, especially as a small receiver. We've seen this Curtis Samuel effect for the past 3 years where everybody wanted to make it a thing because he had manufactured touches at Ohio State. He might end up being better than that. Samuel could be better than he's produced, but I see Elijah Moore where a team has to find ways to get him the ball. He's not going to create for himself. He's kind of pigeonholed in that slot with his size, and he's going to get decimated in man coverage against some of these bigger NFL corners because he's not just faster than them like he was in college. He's a good player, but I think it's limited.
All right, Andy, is there any guy that either I don't have on my list or we just haven't talked about yet that you wanted to shout out real quick before we move on to our Forgotten Fantasy Player?
Yeah, I got a few, and I know we can go probably another 2 hours, so we'll keep it short with the time. But I got 6 wide receivers here. I'm going to give you names on that don't get as much talk as but I do think there's relevance. I'll give you a name, too, that comes to mind when I watch them. Nico Collins out of Michigan. Didn't get a lot of time on the field, but this is a guy. If you missed out on Chase Claypool last year, this is your guy. Nico Collins is 6'4", and is legit 6'4", stocky, wide frame that he uses. He's not, he's not a finesse player, and he's also got 4.4 speed. So that is exactly what Chase Claypool was. So Nico Collins is a guy to look for. Marquez Stevenson out of Houston, unbelievable burner. Unbelievable burner. I just don't know that he's got shaky hands. But the guy that comes to mind with him is Jalen Guyton. We saw Guyton come in and just be exactly what Justin Herbert needed. Not to say a stud, but a guy that is definitely going to be added at certain points. So that's a guy I look at. Jalen Darden out of North Texas. Nobody's talking about this kid. But he, to me, is a discounted version of Mecole Hardman. You want some fun film to watch? Watch Jalen Darden. He's just got tremendous burst. He's just fun to watch. A little bit undersized, but just not undersized. For a wide receiver, he's like 5'9", 180, but he's just a good football player. Maybe like that Tyler Lockett kind of guy.
Right. Where,
is he going to be something special? No, this guy's just a good football player. And then sure enough, 10 years later, like, wow, that guy's a borderline Hall of Famer. Marlon Williams, UCF. You cannot not find this guy in the field. Not your prototypical wide receiver at all. He's like a box out there. Much bigger than most wide receivers you're going to see, but super productive and, not slow, good speed. He's a true receiver. But he's definitely unique. I'll put it at that. And then 2 more names here. Tamorrion Terry, Florida State. Underwhelming, underperformed. at Florida State. Tremendous hype coming in. If you missed out on DK Metcalf, this is your guy. He ran a 4.39 40 in high school, and apparently he stumbled out of the gate when he ran that. This guy's huge as well. He's 6'5", 6'4", 6'5". He's legit. He's a physical freak. Just really didn't get things going at Florida State consistently. But seeing what Florida State was the last couple of years, I don't know that I would pin that on him being the problem there. And then the last guy, Anthony Schwartz. Listen, everybody loves speed. This kid has a 4.27 40 on his file. He's a track star. He's a national track star. He's not just a speed guy. When you watch him play for Auburn, he's tough. He's a football player, but he's also a track star. So we see how speed gets bumped up. We saw a bump up Henry Ruggs last year. Schwartz, to me, can be that type of guy where he's going to get extra looks just because of that game-changing speed. So those would be 6 guys I would say are not really being talked up and should be.
Nice. I love it. I love the info you give us, man. I'm going to go back and listen to this and jot all those names down and add them to my watch list, because there's guys, like I said, I don't watch much college football. So when I have you on and you give me names like that, it gives me more things to go back and watch and see what you see. I love it. All right. It's time now. Yeah, what was that?
I said it's the payoff. I get to do this all year to have these 5 minutes.
All right, let's get to our Forgotten Fantasy Player.
Get ready for GoingFor2.com's Forgotten Fantasy Player of the Week.
All right, Andy, who you got for your Forgotten Fantasy Player?
Now, I wasn't sure where to go with this because I don't know that forgotten necessarily means forgotten or just not really remembered. I don't know how far back you wanted to go. I threw a lot of names around. Steven Jackson was one that came to mind. But ultimately, I went with Charlie Garner, who at the age of 30 in Oakland, 2002, put up a season of 182 carries for 962 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns, and an additional 91 receptions for 941 yards and 4 touchdowns. At age 30 in Oakland, this guy was Christian McCaffrey, and nobody remembers Charlie Garner.
That's a good call. I like that one a lot. And I usually leave it open-ended, as far as what forgotten means. So, perfect call right there, Charlie Gardner. That's a good one. I don't think we had that one yet, Ryan, have we?
No. He was for the Niners for a while, too, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was with us for a long time. Yeah, it was, I think, a couple years, and then he went to Oakland. Yeah, definitely a good forgotten player. I like that one. All right, that does it for the show today. Let's go around the room real quick. Give us your Twitter handle where we can follow you at, and plug your site one more time. Andy, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, PeoplezPen, Peoples with the Z, or Andy Singelton. Just look me up. I've lost over 1,000 followers in the last year, so find me there and add me. I can use the love. I tweet out a lot of stuff, all relevant, I feel. Retweet a lot of good stuff I see pass on my timeline. So, just go there and you'll have links to everything I'm a part of. ExpandTheBoxScore.com is the website, the most advanced college football statistics and NFL statistics you're going to find at the most affordable price. And don't forget, our first annual NFL Draft Guide covering every single NFL Draft eligible prospect will be out on February 15th. So make sure to check that out as well.
Good stuff. And Ryan, we'll go to you next.
Find me on Twitter, Ryan Searfoss at Foss534. Find me here every Wednesday-ish night. We're also doing the War Room episodes, doing about anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes on a bunch of individual prospects. We have a few more of them coming out that we'll be recording again soon. Find me at the Sports Illustrated Draft Bible and the Dynasty Draft Room podcast for them as well.
All right, good stuff. As always, guys, you can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. And if you're a longtime fan of the show, you probably realize there's been some other shows on this same network. We've now gone to a podcast network. We've launched, I think, already 3 shows. We had the 2-point conversion on last night. Gladys had Adam Rank on, so it was a pretty awesome show. We've got 3 more shows to debut, I think all coming at the Super Bowl. So, be on the lookout for that. For Andy, for Ryan, I'm Jeff, and we will see you next time.